My name is LaShonda Eaddy, and I am a PhD candidate at the University of Georgia. I am originally from Columbia, South Carolina, have also spent some time in Orlando, Florida, and my research area is crisis communication. So I first started researching the integration of UGA for a course that I took on the historical research method, and I wanted to find a topic that there was a wealth of information available that I would be able to look at, and fortunately we have that here at the University of Georgia in the reserves. So that's how I first got started on this paper, and unbeknownst to me, it actually ended up being a really interesting paper to write, and nobody has actually told the communication story regarding the integration of UGA. So in 1954, the Supreme Court ruled in Brown versus Board of Education, Topeka, stating that all schools would have to be integrated in the United States. A lot of people know more about the integration of public schools because it wasn't until several years later that they actually extended the ruling to higher education as well. A lot of people know about the events that happened at the University of Alabama and the Ole Miss surrounding African Americans who tried to start school there, but not very many people know about what actually happened here at the University of Georgia. The University of Georgia actually had two students named Hamilton Holmes and Charlene Hunter, who were the first ones to be admitted here to the university. And when they were admitted, Hamilton Holmes actually lived off campus with another family here in Athens, but Charlene Hunter lived in an on-campus residence, well, they don't call it residence hall then, sorry, on-campus dormitory here at the University of Georgia. And while she was there actually was a riot outside of her dorm in response to her admission as well as Hamilton Holmes. It actually happened after a Georgia Tech, University of Georgia basketball game. And some accounts of what happened say that the students here at UGA were really upset that they had lost to their in-state rival, Georgia Tech. And after the basketball game was over, that they actually just came right down the street to where Charlene was staying and decided to, I guess they were just upset. So they got rowdy outside of her dorm and a riot ensued. Other accounts believe that as soon as Charlene and Hamilton enrolled in school at UGA, that there was actually planning behind the scenes for this riot to actually occur. Some accounts talk about how all of the lights in the dorm were turned out on that night because everybody had been notified that this would be happening, but the only light that was on in the dorm was Charlene, so they would know where to direct anything that they were throwing and to try to intimidate her, because ultimately they didn't really want her or Hamilton to be here at the University of Georgia. So when that happened, Dean William Tate, who was the Dean of Men at the time, he, along with some local police officers, were the ones to try to quell the riot. And shortly after, Hamilton and Charlene were sent notice from the university registrar that they were being dismissed for their own safety from the university. So after that, Charlene and Hamilton's attorneys had to petition the court to allow them back in the school. And once that happened, they did return to the University of Georgia. Well, the communication story here is that although the university actually did have a public and information office, there's no really record that I can find that expresses that they were doing anything other than press releases. So when you go back and you try to look at records of what that office was distributing at that time, you can see that they were the number of press releases that were being distributed didn't really show that there was much going on here on the campus, although the riot had just happened and they were still dealing with what ensued after. However, what you do see when you start to look back in the records of what we have from Dean Tate and from President Adderhold is that Dean Tate really was the face of the university for this whole integration of UGA. You don't really find very much record of President Adderhold saying anything. You don't see any formal statements from a public relations function, but what you do see in the articles and in everything else is Dean Tate being the one who was actually dealing one-on-one with the students, but who also was dealing with the media as well. That I find interesting because typically I would think that the CEO of an organization, or I guess that would be President Adderhold for the university, would have been really in the limelight, in the forefront of what was going on, but that wasn't the case. So I haven't really been able to find any indication on why he may or may not have been more visible, but I was able to find some things where he did mention image, and that lets me know that he was aware of the importance of what was happening at the university, but for whatever reason decided to let Dean Tate take the more visible role in what was happening at the university at the time. Nobody really knows about the UGA story, I don't think. That the Alabama and the Ole Miss riots were a lot more publicized. And one thing that I did find as I looked in the archives is that in addition to President Adderhold not being in the forefront of what was going on at the university, everything in operations, everything that the university was communicating made it seem like really business was usual. You know, business was normal as usual, that there wasn't a lot going on, that really it wasn't the great students of the University of Georgia that had organized this riot, that it really was outsiders who came in and who negatively influenced the great students of the university. And so I think that the University of Georgia wanted to save face and to not really let the country know really how bad things were here when the university was integrated. And perhaps the University of Georgia was able to do that better than some of the other universities because there's not a whole lot out there that talks about what actually happened here. Additionally, another reason that there might not be as much information available about what happened at UGA is that after the riot happened, there was a time where the university wouldn't even allow the media to be on campus anymore. And so I don't know that if that could have possibly impacted how much information was being shared regarding the actual climate here on campus after the integration. But I do think it's interesting because there was a riot here, just like there was at Alabama and Ole Miss, but I don't think that very many people are aware of that. And there are other indications from informal focus groups with students in the dormitory that Charlene lived in who said, you know, basically we're staying here in the dorm, although she's here, but the only reason we're staying is because there's no place better for us to go. This is the best place that we can stay in. We don't want to give up our amenities here just because she's here, but we really don't want her to be here. There could be a number of reasons that those students shared those sentiments. It could be that they too were saving face and really were okay with her being there, but when asked about it, likely knew how perhaps their parents or other people outside of the university felt about Charlene and Hamilton's presence, or they could have actually been, you know, being honest about how they felt about the university being integrated. But regardless, I think the university did, if the university's intent was to not really let that story get out, I think they probably succeeded in it. I don't really know whether or not that was the right or wrong move, because I guess at the end of the day, the university was able to maintain its prestige and endure what happened after it was integrated. I'm very appreciative to the sacrifice that Hamilton Holmes as well as Charlene Hunter made, because they really paved the way for people after them to come. And I can only imagine how tough it was for them to be here. And in some accounts that I've read, I don't even know that at their age they were even aware of the ramifications of what their decision to apply to the university was even going to entail. But what they did was very courageous. The people who helped them, their attorneys, everybody, what they did is, you know, decades later is still giving dividends. The University of Georgia has been transparent in having all of these resources available that are surrounding what actually happened with the integration, and I think that it's an awesome resource here that is available to really anybody from the community or any students who want to come and find out more about what happened then. And I think it's a true testament to the university that they are willing to allow people to look at these things, because it could be seen as a possible blemish on the legacy of the university, but instead it can be a true testament to how far the university has actually come in from the integration with Charlene and Hamilton.